learned the order of service this week, and yet it is still with some horror that I turn the page and find that the sermon is next. So, I was also concerned that when I got here this morning, we wouldn't have enough questions. This is the question box. It's not like a piñata. We had plenty of questions. I don't mean to disrespect them.
I want to save them for a future sermon.
Indeed. In fact, I would encourage, so I'm only going to be able to answer 4 of them. They are actually all very compelling questions. And if you want, you may consider them an invitation to have a cup of coffee or tea or a glass of wine or beer with me, and we can sit down and talk about it. I'm a geek about this stuff. That's why I'm up here. So I would take great pleasure in that. As it was, some of the questions related to one another, and we sort of combined those together. The first question that we selected for this morning is, how can we accept all things and welcome all guests when those things and guests include death, disease, disability, and injustice? And LB has a response for us.
First, a bit of explanation. Normally, when I'm asked to choose the hymns for a service, we have 3 or 4 hymns, and I spend 2 to 3 hours picking hymns based on their text, on how well they fit together with the other hymns, how well we know them as a congregation, when the last time we sang them was. So you are about to benefit from 10 minutes of picking hymns. For this hymn, please take out your teal hymnals and turn to number 1031. We'll sing verse 1 only. And 2-bar introduction.
How can we accept all things and welcome all guests when those things and guests include death, disease, disability, and injustice? I love this question because it speaks to us being a welcoming congregation, with us having welcome in our mission statement. And I have taken that word and pushed it to where I think it has some theological implications. Theological, not pertaining exactly to words about God, but words about the nature of our religious lives. And I do think that welcoming all guests, even when they include things and guests like death, disease, disability, and injustice, is a deep spiritual path. I speak some from experience and some from hope and imagination on this, to be honest. I think the key can be found, at least for me, this question resonates with my understanding of Buddhism, and that Gautama understood at some point that the nature of life was suffering. That's an interpretation that perhaps is a bit harsh, but it has something to do with life is constantly changing. All form all relationships are in a constant state of change, which is, of course, from a certain perspective, what death and disease are as well, or even unruly guests or unexpected developments in your day. And again, my understanding of that particular faith tradition is not so much that we are welcoming with open arms and joy all of these things. You certainly can find yourself experiencing some irritation. But the key is about attachment. We have expectations, and when they aren't met, expectations that, I don't know, perhaps we or our friends will live for another day. And that is a dramatic example, of course. When they are not met, it's not welcoming that tragedy into our lives that is as challenging as letting go of the expectation. And by letting go of that expectation, we are then free to be fully present in the moment. So this is not, of course, an easy path or task, but it is one that, should we choose it, I think has profound implications on our experience. Our second question is actually a series of questions. And these are pointedly theological in nature. One of them is, do you, I guess that's me, believe in God? Is this even the right question? What is the right question? And can it be answered? The related question, I consider the existence of God a relatively unimportant question theologically. From a UU point of view, is it? And the last one that's related to this is, when do you stop questioning and start relying on faith and acceptance?
Please turn in your gray hymnals to number 193. Elliot will play it through in its one complete verse before we sing. And we will sing only verses 1 through 3.
These are hard questions. I'll go through and answer each of them quickly and then hopefully elaborate. Do I believe in God? Yes. Is that the right question? No. It's not. And why? What is the right question? I don't know what the right question is, but I don't think whether you believe in God or not, or whether God exists or not, is all that compelling of a question in a way, or at least it doesn't decide a whole lot at the end of the day. Okay, I'm moving on. Hopefully they all tie together at the end. You'll have to do the tying. I consider the existence of God relatively unimportant question theologically. I guess I do too. From a UU point of view, is it? Okay, yes, it is an important question because we welcome people of many, many different perspectives. So it is important and some of them are polytheist. It's not just, do you believe in God, but, which ones? And we welcome them into our faith. We welcome them into our community. We welcome people who, of course, don't believe in any sort of extra human consciousness or whatever you would call that. My definition of God, I have two sort of operating definitions of God that allow me to answer yes to do I believe in God. One is that I feel that God is a word that means that is grace-given human dimension. It's grace, all the good things that happen in our life, and we give it a human face. We give that contingency, our contingency, a human face, and therefore make it relatable to us. So it's a psychological exercise that becomes a spiritual exercise. My other definition of God is that it is God is a higher magnitude of identity. God is so we have our own matrix. There's other matrices that are bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and God is the experience of the next level up on the matrix, or the next level, not up, but expanded. So God is an expansion. The experience of God is an expansion of identity. And so I guess God is an experience rather than a being, is what I might say. When do you stop questioning and start relying on faith and acceptance? I'm demonstrating my relying on faith up here right now. When do you stop questioning? I actually think we stop questioning all the time. We very rarely question, even as questioning as we are. We don't question. So many things we take for granted. And this comes back to the last question that we had. We take for granted our next breath. We take for granted our next step. And we have to. I mean, that's part of the bargain. We have to do that. And yet, the question here is probably speaking to some deeper things. And I think that you stop questioning when you stop questioning the deeper things and accept and start exercising your faith when you come up against your own contingency, when you come up against where your power ends and yet you continue. And we are all contingent. Does that word make any meaning to you? We are all dependent on one another and the systems, biological, economic, social, historical, psychological, and ecological that have put us here. We had nothing to do with hardly, like this much. Okay, that's it. We're done. I'll keep you here all day. But that's when you start relying, I think, on faith in a deep sense, and that is also that door can keep getting wider and wider. But for me, faith starts with a realization of my own contingency and the grace. Another word for that is, in a way, grace of my being, and sometimes I can call that, in a certain mood, I can call that God, for instance. Okay, our next question. It can be said that spirituality is the relationship between self and something greater. In fact, I sort of just did say that. Something more meaningful that transcends our normal awareness. Here's the question, what limits a person's ability to grow spiritually? What enhances a person's ability to grow spiritually? How can spirituality be discussed without limiting the experience?
Turn in your gray hymnals to number 123. We'll sing it through with just a brief introduction.
What limits a person's ability to grow spiritually? I would say that automaticity, automatic responses, not being present, allowing ourselves to be overcome easily by emotion, such that yes, those will limit our ability to grow spiritually. Hand in glove with those things are, again, attaching myself to expectations, attaching myself to them, and living in a fiction of the future instead of in the present moment, because spirituality only happens right now. And if we are constantly planning our day, or if I'm listening to you and thinking about dinner, if I am being disrupted from my plans for whatever reason, that is taking me. Those are not spiritual pursuits. I need to rather find myself in the moment in order to open the door to spirituality. And this can be practiced. Lou Holtz, former football coach at Notre Dame, I don't know if he robbed this from somebody. I didn't set the timer. You guys get bonus time. He said that there's no such thing as luck. There's only being prepared for opportunity. I look at spirituality the same way. You have to prepare for a spiritual experience, but preparing for a spiritual experience doesn't mean that you're going to get one. So you do the ritual, that's not the spiritual experience. You do the ritual to prepare for when God fumbles, you can jump on the ball, so to speak. I'm mixing metaphors of metaphors. So what enhances a person's ability to grow spiritually? I saw a wonderful little snippet from John Kabat-Zinn. I've been doing a lot of reading in mindfulness. Perhaps you're hearing that. And he pointed out that the Chinese character for mindfulness is the top part of the character is a house, and the bottom part of the character is a heart. So mindfulness is fullness of heart. And I think that is one way. Preparing ourselves to be mindful is one way to prepare ourselves for grace, to prepare ourselves for a spiritual experience. But this takes the question, what enhances a person's ability to grow spiritually? There's a one-word answer, and that is commitment. I mean, you could have a spiritual experience, an incredible spiritual experience, and big deal. If you're not committed to growing as a spiritual person, that experience will be very superficial at the end of the day. So commitment is the first step towards cultivating yourself as a spiritual person. And church, by the way, is part of that commitment. I mean, for us, I think church is a spiritual practice. I think Sunday service is you coming here to reaffirm community, to see each other, to hear a good word, to sing some songs. That is evidence of a commitment to an orientation. So you're already doing it. Congratulations. And if you want to do more of it, there is more commitment to be made. And in fact, I'm designing a little thing for the fall that I'm not going to tell you about right now. There's a teaser, but that will offer opportunities for a deeper commitment to a spiritual path for each of you. How can spirituality be discussed without limiting the experience? I think it can be discussed without limiting the experience all day long. Probably not while you're having it. But afterwards and beforehand, I hope so, because that's my job. I would hate to preclude myself from the thing that I'm talking about by the fact that I love it so much. Maybe that happens, but I think that we can talk about it. Of course, it's good to remember that when we point at the moon, not to mistake the moon for the finger, right? So, on to our last and final question. A series of questions, actually. Oh, I didn't even start the timer that time. We may be here all day. Okay, how would I judge my success in ministry, which is related to are congregations sustainable in the future? Is there another manifestation of religious life? And finally, why do religions seem to obsess with growth?
Open your gray hymnals. Turn to number 113. Elliot will play through once completely, and then we'll sing verses 1 through 4.
I'm going to save the job interview question for later. How would you judge your success in ministry? It's a question the Ministerial Fellowship Committee might ask me. It's bringing back panic attacks. Are congregations sustainable in the future? Is there another manifestation of religious life? Okay, I am so happy that you asked, because this is, of course, has been a big topic of discussion amongst many bright lights in the Unitarian Universalist Association. And there has been some back and forth, and I'm definitely on one side of that discussion and not on the other necessarily. Are congregations sustainable in the future? Absolutely. I think they are absolutely, they've been sustainable for, 4,000 years, at least 2,000 years. We're not going anywhere. The group of people getting together around a central idea, that's not gonna go away. And will it look like this? It's looked like this for a really long time. And technology has changed it somewhat. Technology radically altered how the Roman Catholics did things. When people got a hold of the Bible and were able to read it in their own tongue, that made a big impact. Is the internet going to make as big an impact as that? Probably not, but it'll change some things. And technology will change some things, and we will adapt to that and utilize the best of it and probably utilize some of the worst of it and figure it out. But I think that the general model is a decent one. It's not the only one, though. Not by a long stretch. And it's not the only one that Unitarian Universalists should be doing, in fact. The model that I'm referring to, by the way, is primarily the Sunday services being the heart of a community that has a bunch of programs that operate sort of like an octopus, right? The Sunday service is the body, and the operations and things are the tentacles and the limbs. So what will religious community look like in the future? Well, again, going back to the last question, this all has to do with commitment. It comes down to commitment. And that is a real challenge to Unitarian Universalists because we're not quite sure what we're committing to. And we have guests that come in today. I don't know if you all have ever been to a UU church before. Okay, a lot of guests come in. They like what we do. They like you. They like me. And they're happy to be here for 2 or 3 times. But then they feel like it's a good community, but there's no there. There's no central thing to hang my soul on or to hang my even identity on. And so they drift away. I think that's the question at the center of Unitarian Universalism. I think that there is an answer. I think it's in practice, and I think it's in a commitment to practice. I think it's in recognizing what we already do as practice. And so we will be, actually, that is the program that I'll be rolling out for you all in the fall, is an opportunity to recognize what you already do and to make it a coherent thing so that when somebody new comes into our community, you could offer them, you don't have to even be doing this, but you could offer them, we don't have a central belief, but we have a path that you can walk. And if you could walk a path, there's a there. It doesn't have to be about dogma. So how would I judge my success in ministry, I suppose, is if I'm able to continue to, if one of these ideas works someday for myself and for the congregation that I serve, that would be that level anyway of success. That would be a spiritual success of my ministry. And that is that. I didn't start it again. I don't know. So much for technology. There you go. That's right. Okay. Well, thank you all. That was fun. Elliot, that was incredible. Thank you for rolling with us today. I got your name right? Okay, good. But I would just like to give a round of applause to Elliot for indulging us. Baptism. Yeah, well, LB, of course. But of course, LB. That was fantastic. And that was a lot of fun for me, mostly because it was just a real joy to hear the counterpoint and references in the music in relation to what I was thinking. That was nice. And thank you all for your indulgence. Now back to our regularly scheduled program.